High Tide by Dragon Master X. Many stories speak of a nameless sea dog of mysterious origin. He who single-handedly could sink vessels without firing a single cannonball. He who challenged the infamous Edward Teach to duel and survived. He who has often mistaken for Devil Jonah or the equally cryptic Davy Jones. All the tales shared the same common denominator, that tool he would never be seen without. Envious and admirers alike would name it the sole reason he's accomplished all the feats that so far had placed him in the 18th century's Atlantic Ocean's mouths and ears, until just recently. This tool, a golden compass shape of sorts, he would always hold in his left hand, they said. The center was bloody red, and there was no way to tell why that was, but many speculated it was the mystical artifact said to draw the power of those the holder had slain. Others attributed to its good luck to witchcraft and the sort, but they were all wrong in conjecturing, or at least not entirely correct. His all-important trinket was of mystical origin, without a doubt, for no common man, not even the mighty pirate Blackbeard, could work wonders such as his. A scholar of the occult once had managed to spot, or so he claimed, that which had placed this man in such high regard, and in relation to his studies deduced the artifact had been none other than the seal of Fornius. A powerful high-class demon. Oh my god. A powerful high-class demon, Fornius was said to possess vast knowledge on the human behavior, and was able to grant any one man with his supernatural powers and endow them with the ability to accomplish anything they desired. Legend has it, however, that a righteous god sent an angel to strike this demon and seal the beast off its body by draining all of its blood into a container of sorts. He was said to have been carrying the seal in his hand, and all of a sudden the feats he had been said to have accomplished had made much more sense. No, it didn't just make sense. This nameless dog had mastered a demon's power. Any pirate holding this artifact would be granted its power. Yet, word has it he has been stricken down by righteous hand. Rumors began as his frequency at sea started to dwindle. Finally, the churches inland began to preach about him and his corrupted soul having finally been purified after all his evil deeds as a pirate. "Why are you telling me all of this?" a shy voice asked inside the dark chamber of the SS Anthony's captain quarters. The female was tied down to a chair. Her messed up dark hair draped over her deflated shoulders. Sign of her lost hope. Humph. Sounds less crazy to say I'm talking to a pretty woman than to myself, doesn't it? Captain Locke turned around, his rough English accent transpiring through his mouth. Well, I didn't do an English accent. Transpiring through his mouth as much as the sweat that went down his thick neck. Captain Locke used to be a small-name crook in land, and had somehow raised enough to commandeer a large ship with an adequate number of people for his crew. Now a pirate of the Bahamian seas, Locke prided himself in sea plundering, and as many similar criminal activities as he did on land, now on ship, at the vast Atlantic Ocean. When will we reach land? Am I going to have to be let go? Captain Locke let out a chuckle. Haven't heard a word I've said, eh? But I'll play along, little miss. Normally we'd just make use of your charms, if you will, and then simply discard you along the way. No commitments, you see. However, during the visit we paid to the ship, we took you from, we heard, one a hot tip on the seal of the friend. This is gonna be... the grammar's awful. Honestly, you're gonna write this whole thing and the grammar's awful. I'm sorry. It's gonna sound weird. I'm gonna be cutting it quite a bit, but I'm just gonna take the best take because I'm not spending 10 times going over a fucking sentence. Surprise, surprise! The reason he hasn't been seen around is because he's gone, but his pretty trinket went down with him, and there's a good chance it's still intact and highly valuable, you see. He grinned. Ugh. Simple-minded brutes going after some sort of childish dream spurring from a street rumor about a super pirate. Just my luck, the girl thought, unable to find any solace or any less in the captain's words. Janice, or Jean, to her parents, used to belong to the high class of life in the European metropolis. Yet By a cruel twist of fate, she happened to be the person of terrible bad luck the Luck pirates decided to take as a hostage from the luxury voyage her parents had paid for her. Jean was supposed to meet the man of her dreams in the conglomeration of noble-classed people, yet somehow must have found it humorous to make her the sexual slave of a bunch of smelly pirates instead. She hadn't even been keeping her hopes up in the voyage, and found that she had been the sacrifice rather ironic. "Dear, you seem to be lost in thought," the cheery, burly captain groaned, displeased by her lack of attention to the tale of information he held in such high regard. Captain Locke, my little sea biscuit." The man flashed her his best sensual grin, but what he thought was sensual appeared to be making Jean's stomach do flips. "Of course. How silly of me." Jean finally corrected herself after a pause, and then followed, "I am to assume you're after this magical trinket of yours, yes? Surely you don't need the encumbrance of a woman in your fine ship." "Why the hesitation?" Locke chuckled again, amused, as he sipped scotch directly from the bottle. Then let out a hearty laugh. "Bah ha ha ha! You're being treated well, aren't you? We give you food. We don't even ask you to wash our clothes. Aren't we true gentlemen?" he rhetorically asked. Jean couldn't help a grimace. "You and your flea circus have been raping me since day one," she suddenly shouted. I'm not shouting that. Her chair rattled, the frilly dress bouncing with her as she attempted to stand up, blind in fury to the bonds restraining her. "Ah ha ha ha! Tisk tisk tisk! We've talked about this, dear Jean." Locke set his bottle of whiskey down on a side table, and made his way to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You should have saved the frisk for the bed, and nothing else. We're taking you along for the ride, and you don't have to do much else than... well, what else is a woman good for?"
"Sex. Good for sex."
He laughed, causing Jean to growl right back at him. Locke glared at her defiance and pulled her by the hair, causing her to scream out in a sharp pain. "Bah! Now you listen good, wench. First you ignore me and my tales, next you dare to insult my crew in front of me, and now you go on and decide to snarl me? Don't you got some balls under that skirt of yours?" He then brought his hand down and smacked Jean across the face. "Understand this, because I'm tired of hitting you, of damaging that beautiful face of yours," he grunted, holding Jean's head by her jaws, the girl looking back at him with teary eyes, yet with the same defiant expression in her face. "You are mine, and when I say you'll give pleasure to my men, you'll undress yourself and take it with a big smile. If I bring you to my quarters to chat, you'll listen obediently and nod with a big smile. You'll do anything I tell you, won't you, my pretty?" Jean couldn't do much else but nod, her battered face hurting too much for her to receive another smack from that heavy hand of his. "I asked a question, curse you!" he yelled. "Yes, I will," she coughed, eyes scrunched shut from his mouth. "I can't hear you!" He pulled again on her hair, making her scream, "Yes, I will!" "You will what?" "I'll do anything you tell me. I'll do it," Jean cried, emotionally broken and beyond scared. "Stop it! Stop pulling! It hurts, please!" she sobbed, her teeth gritting together as she bore the pain. Locke smiled and finally let go, crouching slightly so she could see his face as she spoke to him, bathing her face with a smell of alcohol. "So long as you get it, dear," she sobbed, unable to get back at him, the impotence of the situation having drained both her strength and will. Jean felt horrible. She could do nothing, say nothing. She was no less than a slave. No, she was much less than a slave. She was an object exclusively for their relief. They all saw her as nothing else but a tool they could use and pass on to the next one that needed it. She sobbed, begging the gods for mercy, praying for a miracle, reciting orations of solace, asking with her mind for a miracle to save her from the insane lifestyle that had been forced upon her poor soul. Her prayers, however, would not be answered until 3 days later, when a serious storm was rocking the boat. It was the middle of the night, and every man was busy keeping the ship from losing to the unforgiving powers of Mother Nature. Jean was naked. And in one of the rooms for the crew. Just until this moment. One of the men had been abusing her as usual. But the sudden storm that hit them required everybody to leave and man the posts. Jean was alone, and for the first time she felt lucky, in spite of the current situation. For a while she sat at the bed, grabbing to a support pole on the side in order not to fall over from the wild rocking of the ship. Jean was looking absent-mindedly at the wooden floor, thinking she must have been crazy to even consider what her head was suggesting her to do. She was alone, and no one was watching her. They were all too busy. This was her chance, the chance she had been praying for. On the other hand, what sort of crazy lunatic would attempt to escape a pirate ship during such a big storm? Yes, she must have been crazy, but any more days in this ship would drive her unrecognizably insane to even matter if she was ever rescued. She had to try. If she died trying, she would at least finally be free. With her priorities in order, Jean quickly got herself in her undergarments and decided to take her chance. She went outside and instantly bore witness to the chaos that was the deck. Men yelling incomprehensible orders to each other, the cracking sound of wood resounding along the area, the thundering roars of the black skies as lightning struck in the distance. Jean would have found this especially scary on any other day, but the prospect of being able to steal a boat right now and escape the living nightmare made her ignore everything that had happened and head to the boats on the side of the ship, making sure nobody saw her, which was already hard thanks to the hectic moment, plus the darkness that helped her with concealment. She managed to sneak over to the boats, and with the sharp knife she had managed to secure from the empty crew's quarters, she began with the chore of cutting the first support rope enough so the boat would remain where it was but would fall after the other rope was cut down. This knife they dropped in their haste really is sharp. I'm glad I'm getting out of here. A shiver ran down her spine as she thought of the last week. A horrible time in her life she would never want to go back to. She was so focused on the reminiscing that in that very brief moment she bumped into one of the men that was running her away. Jean could have hidden behind a barrel, crate, or pole, but she had to decide to let her guard down at that last moment. She looked up and widened her eyes. The man standing before her was the same guy that had been raping her before the storm hit. She groaned and suddenly rage welled inside of her. Jean didn't even let the pirate say a word. He was as startled as she was, it seemed. Jean didn't think about it. Her arm moved on its own, her hand clutching the knife as hard as she could muster, and she slashed. The pirate screamed in pain as he felt the gash from across his face. He held a hand to his skin while he thrashed about with his free arm. Unfortunately for Jean, he managed to easily knock the knife off her hands with a single whack of his closed fist. Terrified, Jean attempted her last-ditch effort and tried jumping onto the boat, praying for it to somehow fall into the sea with her on board. But the sailor reached for her, roaring in pain as he finally uncovered his bleeding face. You bloody witch! You'll pay for this, doesn't matter what Captain says!" he hollered, attempting to strangle her in place after having extracted her from the safety boat. Jean closed her eyes as she gagged, starting to choke. Maybe this was the end, but somehow it didn't please her that she was going to die at this fop's hand, even if death she was prepared to embrace. Just then, however, a sharp cry alerted both of them. "Get to your post, you fool! What in tarnation do you think you be doing?" Are they fucking cowboys? A voice distracted the pirate just in time to let the weakened Jean breathe again as his grip softened. But then the ship rocked violently and he completely lost his grip. Jean fell off the edge, followed by the burly pirate. "Hey! Hey!" the other pirate yelled. "Water! Man in the water! Man fell down!" he shouted, attempting to hurry over to the edge, but was promptly stopped by Captain Locke. "He's gone, matey." Locke grunted, quickly looking over the board. "Can't help him now. We don't do this now, we can all celebrate a Davy Jones locker. Now move on," he barked. Little did the captain know that he had just lost more than just a crew member to the raging sea. This concludes part 1. Please check in later when I upload part 2. it gets fucking weirder.